Hello, welcome to Berkshire Guitar Amplifier Repairs. Stuart Smith with you as always. On the bench we've got a Fender HotRod Deluxe. I'll show you it in a moment. And the problem with this amp is that the power amp section seems to be working okay, but no preamp. So basically there's no sound coming out of the amp at all. He knows the power amp section works because you can jack into the power amp on this amp, and he's been able to check that. So let's have a look at it, power it up and see if we can agree the fault. Right, here we are. I've got the amp plugged in and switched on. Some volumes up, middling kind of thing, and strum the old guitar. Nothing whatsoever as reported. So let's see what happens when we plug this into the power amp in socket. And immediately you can see we have some signal, and that means the power amp's working. Now I immediately noticed, don't know if you spotted it, but I noticed that this preamp out jack here was broken off, and he did mention that to me when he bought it. So this has been quite badly snapped off, not repairable. That will need a new jack. And I'm just wondering if this might be the problem, because from what I remember with these amps, the preamp signal comes out via the contacts of this preamp out socket, and then it goes to the power amp. So if the contacts of this are broken somehow, that would disconnect the preamp from the power amp. So it might be as simple as needing a new jack here. Anyway, we have to replace that jack, so I'm going to pull the board on this amp, and that will be a good chance for me to show you how to remove the board on one of these amps. I've done it before a couple of times, but I'll show you again, so you can see exactly how to take the board out, so that we can see what's going on under the contacts of this, see if this is actually our problem. I put a 75% wager that replacing this jack will actually solve the entire problem. It's too much of a coincidence that that's broken and the preamps become disconnected from the power amp. So let's mush on, and we'll go through the process of removing a board on this amplifier. It's the same for a lot of these type of amplifiers, the Fender DeVille, HotRod Deluxe, they're all very similar. Okay, let's mush on. So if you're not interested in seeing how a board is removed from a Fender Deluxe, I suggest you fast forward a fair old bit to see if I actually get a grip on this problem. I want to do this step by step because I know it's really useful for some people to see exactly how to do something step by step. So let's do it. And the first thing we're going to do is remove these 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and from memory I think it's 6 screws. I think these 2 you can leave in. Let's just check that. Always make sure I take the washer off with it. Sometimes the washer wants to stick there, but it invariably becomes lost if you don't take it off. There we go. And I think the back should come off now. Yeah, it does. So you don't need to take off these 2 here. They hold this cage on. So don't take off those 2 screws there. Now we've got access to the back. I think I'm going to put this now up on the bench so that we can get a better view of how to remove the board. It's a bit low down here for me to do on my trolley. And the next thing we're going to do is to remove all of the knobs. These are all grub screw knobs, so using a small screwdriver you just loosen each one off and remove it. Always have a handy little box to put everything in, don't just leave it around on the bench. It's about a half-hour job to get this board into a position where you can work on it. We never actually remove it, by the way. It's a question of swinging it down so that we can get to the back of it. Basically the board comes down and out like that so that we can get to the back of it. Okay, that's that. The next thing we're going to do is to undo all the nuts holding the pots on, and whilst we're at it we'll take the nuts holding these jacks as well. I'll use a new pot for those to save me scrabbling around. So starting from the right here, I always use an adjustable wrench. Some people shout at me for that, but I've been using this for decades and I've never had the slightest bit of a problem with it, and it allows me to quickly adjust for the nut size. I've tried the various pot spinners. I've got one here that, for example, 4 times out of 10 it's just not the right thing. It either doesn't work or the shaft's too long or something. I could get myself a load of different ones. By the time I've got that, done that, messed around with that, I've done the job with my adjustable wrench. Okay, well I won't make you watch me undo all of those nuts, I'll just assume that those are done. There we are, all of the nuts off of the pots and off of the sockets there. And the next thing we're going to do is to remove the board retaining screws, of which there are 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Let's get in there and do that. I think I'll put these in with the pot screws and nuts. There we go. Now the board should be loose. It is, look, you can see that it kind of wants to come out, but in order to do that we're going to have to, I think, release it from some of these. It's just been a little while since I've done one of these, just trying to remember exactly how it comes out. Let's have a little waggle, see if we can see how it's looking. Actually not looking too bad. Basically it's got to come down enough for the pot shaft here to swing past here and allow the board to come forward. I think it might just, anyway, you've got to get your fingers in like this, in here. Oh, there we go, it's come down a bit now, and now you need to put quite a bit of force on here to swing it forward like that. So it's here and here that I'm putting my fingers, look, pushing down quite hard to allow it to swing into this position. This earth wire here, let me see if I can show you that. Zoom in a bit. So this earth wire here is a bit of a problem, stops the board coming forward. So I normally just take that one off from here. It'll come. Sometimes it doesn't. Just get a bigger screwdriver for that. There we go. There we go. That's undone that. Try not to drop the screw. There we go. Now that's as you can see, we can get to the board, which means that we can change the faulty socket, which is this one. So I think I'm just going to change that socket, assuming I've got one, and then see if it works. Then if it doesn't, we can take it from there. But as I say, I'd be surprised if that wasn't the cause of it. So let me just show you what I'm going to do on that. Right, this is the offending socket here. And they're quite complicated, these sockets. They've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 8 connections there, plus this one here which holds the socket in, an earth ring. I'm not quite sure how to tackle this at the moment. I might just try some solder braid to start with, see how I get on. Sometimes these jobs are easy, sometimes they're right pigs. Anyway. Using our solder braid, let's have a little go, see how we get on. That's looking quite promising. That one unsoldered beautifully. The solder braid I use is Chem Wick. It's got flux kind of embedded in it. I find it's very good. I'm sure there are other brands that work equally as well, but I always find this one works quite well. I don't know whether I've got one of these sockets in stock. So obviously it's a special Fender socket. I might have to send off for one. Right, those are all quite nicely desoldered. I think I'll show you that in a bit of a close-up. So there you go, you can see they're all reasonably desoldered. So with a bit of luck, if I get a screwdriver or something under here and try and lever that off, it might just come off if we're lucky. Right, so I'm just going to use a very fine bladed screwdriver and see if I can get in here and just gently lever this socket out. Sometimes these come out like a dream, other times not. It's not coming straight away, it's just slightly stuck somewhere. I'll just have a quick look at the joints with my eyeglass, if I can find it. Maybe just go over a couple of these again. It only needs a thread of solder to stop something coming out. Looks a little bit... I think they're pretty solder free. I don't think there's much holding that in. Let's have another go. There we go. There we go. Lovely. There is the offending item. So let me see if I've got one of these in my stash. I do have a few Fender sockets. Whenever I order one, I tend to order 3 or 4 just so that I've got one in stock. But as you can see, it's quite a complicated thing with all those pins on it. So my guess is some of those pins have broken off or something, and that's what's stopping the preamp being connected through to the power amp. And whilst I'm here, I'm just going to go quickly over these pads. Actually, they're not too bad, don't need to. I'm just going to clean the solder off them, but they're actually okay. Let me see if I've got one of these in my Fender socket stash. Right, so this is quite a thin thing. I've got this one here, but it's not quite right. It's got a sort of thicker body. Might not be unlucky. We've got the same number of pins, but it's got a step in the body shape there compared with this. It kind of stands off the board further. These are more like kind of closer to the board. No, they're all the same, these. I've got 5 of those, but none of these sort of slim profile ones. See, that's quite low profile, that. Nuisance, right. Right, I had to wait a couple of weeks to get a socket, and here's the old one, all broken off as you can see, and here's the ones I had in stock, and as you can see these ones have a kind of step here, and this is the new one, look. So this is what's called a low profile socket here, and this one's not low profile, and these are a little bit hard to get hold of. These are very easy, but these weren't so easy at all. I think they only use these in new in inverted commas Fender amps. Anyway, we've got that now, so we can pop it in here. I don't think I'll try and do this single-handedly and solder it in. That won't take too long, and then we're going to see if we get lucky and see if that solves our problem of no signal, and see if it was actually the socket that was the problem. So let's pop that in there and see how we get on. Right, I've got the socket in, and we'll just quickly solder it in there. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Okay, that's in. Now we can turn on the amp. We don't need to put the board back, we can leave it hanging there. We'll put the guitar in here on the right hand side and see if that works. So where's our power? That's off. I'll plug it in. Plug a guitar in here, and yeah, I think we can turn that on. Don't think there's any problem there. So here we go then, on Do We Feel Lucky? Was that the problem? I'm 75% certain that would be it. It's just too much of a coincidence to have a broken jack and the signal from the preamp has disappeared, but who knows. Take it out of standby. It's a bit hummy, but that's okay. We've got the earth disconnected. And no, nothing. Right, well I've just changed V1. There's V1, and let's see what happens there. Not sounding good. Oh! Oh, well, there you go. We have a faulty V1. That was what that problem was. Obviously we needed to change that socket as well. Okay, that's good. So what I'm now going to do is, let me show you. Okay, now the hum is caused by the fact we have this earth tag off here. So as soon as that's back, that'll be okay. Let's turn all this down. So whenever you take a chassis out like this, it's a good opportunity to clean this panel. So I'm going to do that and give that a quick spray over. And the board looks good, I can't see any dry joints or anything, so we're going to leave that as it is. Then we're going to service the pots. I can hear they're a little bit crackly, so I'll put a bit of deoxit on those whilst I have the board in this position. And then we can pop the board back and give it a final test. I usually use a spray foam cleaner. I use Ambersil, but there are quite a few other makes around, and just spray it along here like that. Give it a clean bit of tissue. I'm so mean, I take these very nice thick tissues from my local pub, who seem to bring us about 20 every time we have a meal there, and I collect them all up and bring them home, plus the tissues from other people's tables. How cheap am I? But they're great, they're really nice and thick, and they only go in the bin. So there you go, so that's lovely and clean. Now we'll pop the board back in, I'll show you how to do that, and then we can push forward. So first thing I'm going to do is unplug the amp so that we're nice and safe. And putting the board back is obviously the reverse of getting it out. So we will swing it up like that. So I'm probably going to be a little bit in the way here as I get to where I want to be. And then getting your fingers between pots like this, push down until the pots go underneath there, than it is to get it in, and joggle around until the pot shafts go up there, and push up underneath here, waggle the pot shafts, etc. And there they are, they're all in and lined up. So then, holding it up with one hand, I normally just get one of the pot nuts. And one of the things to check is that this light here, in fact I'm glad I did check that, there's a little light that sticks through here, and that has got bent back, so just make sure that, yeah, there we go, that now goes up through its little hole there. That's not great, that is quite difficult, this little light here actually. It's the bane of my life sometimes. Alright, joggle that into some sort of position. And now we can put one nut on which kind of holds the whole thing. Right, now we can go and put all the others on, and put this earth back as well. And we'll turn on and see if it works. There we go, that's the board back in, the earth tag put back on, and all the nuts put back on. Now this is the light that's difficult to get through. In fact, I had to take the board out again and realign this so that it came up through this square hole here. Quite tricky that to get that working. The other thing to watch is when you put the board in that these buttons aren't caught underneath the chassis and permanently down or whatever. A little bit tricky, but not rocket science. So we have the knobs to put back on yet, and I've put an ECC83 in the V1 position. I've just asked the customer if he wants a 12AY7 in there. Now if you don't know about that, with an ECC83, which is standard on this amp, between 1 and 2 you're blasting your neighbour's windows out. You'll know that if you have any of these type Fender amps. With the 12AY7 in there, it has about 60% of the gain of an ECC83, which allows you to have this up to 3 or 4 for the same volume. So it just kind of gives you a little bit more range on this control. Some people like it, some people don't, so I've asked him if that's what he wants. And then other than that, I'll check the bias quickly and see if that needs doing. Other than that, we're good to go. Okay, we've got the 2 valves in, and we also have a couple of bias meters. These are Euro tubes bias meters, which I like. They're very good. And as you can see, plate voltage is about 430, 33 milliamps, 430 and 34 milliamps. That's a little bit on the low side. Should be more like 45. So I'm just going to stick a screwdriver in here and turn that up a little bit, so clockwise to increase, and see that's going up now. I think we'll just put it at 45, that'll be fine. 44, that's okay. And this one is 42, couple of milliamps difference between the two, that doesn't matter. So that's all good, it's biased up nicely. I think we can put the knobs back on and call it a wrap on this one. Okay, well there you go, hope you enjoyed that one. 2 faults on the amp. One was the broken jack socket there, and the other one was that V1 was completely faulty. I didn't mention it on the video, but I changed that V1 for a 12AY7 on the customer's instructions, and as you remember, that allows you to have a little bit more range on the main volume control there, rather than it being on 1 or 2 and blasting a neighbour's windows in. So there you go, hope you enjoyed that one. Nice little amp, these good gigging amps, and this version 4 seems to be a little bit better made than the earlier versions. We're not getting that resistor burning on the boards and the Xena diodes burning, so maybe they've reduced the current through that chain or something, I'm not quite sure. Anyway, nice little amp, hope you enjoyed the video, and I'll see you on the next one.